Hello, hello. How are you doing?
Hey there, I'm well. What about you?
I'm very good, thank you. How's your Saturday going?
It's well. I'm enjoying my day off, really. I was just about to choose a new book to start with.
How nice. Actually, I think today it's a beautiful Saturday
Mhm.
to read and discuss our favorite books because I think we are both bookworms, people who
Yeah.
are really into reading. But I believe we have different tastes when it comes to books. So, what are your favorite genres, Lolly?
Oh, I would say that fantasy books are my thing. I enjoy reading a good story that
Right.
takes me to another world and let me immerse in that world and forget about the real one. I would say that you are actually the opposite of myself for
Yeah,
that,
I
right?
do understand the charm of fantasy, let me say that, but it isn't typically my go-to. For some
Hmm.
reason, I really like realism, and I'm a huge fan of historical romances and
Hmm.
a bit of mystery, actually. I really like that mix?
Hmm. I would say that a good novel, either a fantasy book or a realistic one, has to have a good plot twist that,
True.
in a way, you can't guess the ending until the very, very end.
Yeah,
Those are the best for me.
that's so true. I love it when I
Mhm.
don't see it coming.
Yeah,
And to
that's
be honest,
great.
sometimes I feel a bit silly, like, but why haven't I noticed because normally there are certain references that lead you to that
Yeah.
ending, but I think authors tend to be really successful
Hmm.
by doing that, and yeah, you find it surprising.
Yeah. Can you think of any novel that you have read recently that has these characteristics?
Not recently, because I have to say I've been reading non-fiction books. I'm
Hmm.
a big fan of history again, so I really like reading about
Okay.
important figures or places. And
Hmm.
actually, the latest book I read was about London and the most
All right.
important monuments in London. But off the top of my head, I can think about a book that we read at the same time because we read it for university.
Hmm.
And I'm talking about Atonement by McEwan.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very, very um, captivating story.
For sure. Yeah, and
Yeah.
the characters there are well crafted.
Hmm. And you can really understand what's going on only by the end.
Right.
And it's great the way that by knowing the different perspectives of the different characters, you get to know how different um, the different visions and the different perspectives of them are like to tell the same story from different points of view.
Absolutely.
So that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's an amazing book to analyze. I think it would be
Mhm.
amazing at some point to discuss only that book because it has many
Mhm.
layers. But it's hard to describe it without spoiling the ending,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah. And one book that also we read at university that I really liked and got me into this genre for a while was 1984 by Orwell.
Oh my, yes.
Um, this one in which the main character lives in a society which is plagued with injustice and totalitarian control. These are dystopian novels, the ones that show us a futuristic world in which um, people are suffering for different reasons.
Yeah.
And this main character finds comfort in his diary where he can share his inner thoughts, and these are all shared with us. Um, and I got so into it that I ended up reading different dystopian novels, such as Brave New World. And we also read Handmaid's Tale
Yeah.
as well at uni.
And there's
Um,
a TV series based on that one, so maybe
that's
someone
true.
has watched that one because I know it's quite popular.
Mm-hmm.
Quite hard to read it, I would say, because the story is not very nice. That's a characteristic of dystopian novels, actually.
Yeah.
The world that they portray is broken, so
Mm-hmm.
it's quite challenging to read them,
Yeah.
but I think it's worth it. And it's
Yeah,
amazing
definitely.
how, as you said, they are invented or futuristic worlds, and
Mm-hmm.
yet you, in a way, you feel identified with certain aspects of that.
Yeah, and the way that they had or they foresaw what was going to happen because they were written years ago, and nowadays we can see many things that are actually happening today.
Yeah.
So that is overwhelming at a certain point to
A
realize
bit
that they were
scary.
actually true. Yeah, they were right about those things.
Yeah, and do you have a favorite author, by the way?
I do, but it's not connected to dystopian novels, but it's connected to fantasy. Tolkien is one of my favorite authors of all time. He was the writer of this series of books, The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbits as well. And I read it when I was younger, and I was really into it because my grandfather loved him. So I got that from him, I guess.
Oh, that's best.
Yeah. And what about you? Is there anything, any author story that you really like?
Yes, there are many actually, but probably I would choose Virginia Woolf.
Hmm?
She
Good
fascinates
choice.
me with her stories. And for those who aren't familiar, she was an influential English writer from the 20th century who penned many captivating books.
Mm,
But what sets her apart is her style of writing, because she uses a very special technique that is called stream of consciousness. And this means that she jumps from one character to the other. So the point of
mhm.
view changes all the time, and you have different perspectives. That's
Yeah,
completely interesting, but at the same time, it is challenging. It's not an easy reading.
yeah. It's not, I would say, a book that you would choose when you go on holiday. You know that we tend to choose an easy read because we need to relax
Yeah.
completely. Um,
You have
so
to be
all these
super attentive.
classics,
Mm,
yeah, the classic novels that require this concentration and effort, I wouldn't say that would be my first choice.
yeah.
Maybe I would want to read that because maybe it's on my top list, but I would always choose something that allows me to relax and to just enjoy
Yeah.
what I'm
Yeah.
reading. Yeah.
Fair point. And do you have any books in mind for that situation then?
Um, I bought a new one recently. I don't remember the name exactly, but I think that it is a girl's guide to murder, a girl's guide to murder, I think. And apparently, I haven't started it yet, but it's about a crime,
Hmm,
and a girl is studying this crime for a university project.
I
And
see.
apparently, she
Mhm.
discovers things that were unresolved. But now the real murderers are looking for her because they don't want to have the real things unveiled. So it really caught my attention, to be honest.
Of
Yeah.
course. It sounds creeping. I'm
Yeah.
not sure how
And
relaxed I would feel when reading it, to be honest,
oh, but
but
I
it sounds
do love
amazing.
crime.
Ah,
I do love
true.
crime stories. I absolutely adore Sherlock Holmes. I adore all the stories from Agatha Christie as well.
Yeah,
And anything connected to that for me is mind blowing.
yeah.
I got really hooked
Of
by them.
course.
So
Yeah. I think those kind of books are page turners, you know, you can't
yes.
stop reading until you find the answer. So you kind of
Hmm.
feel like a detective yourself because
Yes.
you're there following, you know, the different
Hmm.
tests or the different methods they use to find the solution to that
Hmm.
crime. So I kind of see where you're getting at. Yeah.
Yeah. And what about you? Do you have anything in mind to
Mm,
read now?
Let me think. The thing is that I don't mind reading descriptive books, you know. I
Hmm.
understand how tricky it can be, but it relaxes me somehow when I can really picture the book in my mind. Um, for
Hmm.
example, one author that I really admire also is Manuel Puig. He's
Hmm.
Argentinian though, so he wrote in Spanish, but I find him really interesting because the main characteristic of his books is that he's very good at writing with the language that normal people, let's say, would speak, you know, the
Hmm.
slang, the idioms, those kind of
Yes.
expressions. And I find it really interesting and funny.
It is good to have different types of novels to read. I
Yeah,
would say that if you stuck only with one genre, your vision would be so limited. So it's
yeah,
good to try out new genres to see what you like the most. So it's important to do that, and particularly if you actually like some genre already, to try out new authors, either classic ones or new modern ones. So that's a
yeah.
good thing.
Absolutely. And another good idea, maybe for
Hmm.
holidays or when you are starting to learn new language, is short stories because you don't
Yeah.
need to read for such a long time.
Hmm.
And I think it can be motivating, you know?
Yeah. I adore Fitzgerald's
Oh,
short
yes.
stories and more horror-like post ones.
Yeah.
I used to read them a lot. Now, not so much, but because I'm more into novels. But
Yeah.
as you said, it's very good to have something short that actually you can read just in one sitting.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
if you are an anxious person, that's great. A good
True.
choice. Yeah.
Yeah. And
But
actually,
sorry.
sorry, you go on, you go on.
I was going to say that this allows also to read it more than once, and maybe if you want to unveil different themes or topics mentioned there, it's good to analyze it a bit more, not just by enjoying the reading, but trying to see what's behind the words. So,
Absolutely. Actually, I think that's another interesting tip for language learners again,
mhm,
because sometimes it's hard to read something
mhm,
in another language, of course.
yeah,
So, a good idea is to take a book that you really like and that you have read already, like a classic,
mhm,
and you can
yeah,
reread that, but in English. So, you don't
exactly.
need to be so focused in the plot because you already know it, and you
Mhm,
can try to pick up different words, new expressions.
yeah. Uh, I would say that the one that helped me the most to do that was the Harry Potter series because
Mm,
I'm a big fan of Harry Potter.
I know.
I read the books in Spanish first, of course, because I was a kid when they were out, and then I also watched the movies. So
Mm,
reading the books in English was an easy task, even though maybe I was an intermediate level
yeah.
English learner. But still, since I knew the characters. I knew what was going on in each of the books. Now I have them behind me. But that helped me a lot
You
to
see.
learn new expressions, to learn new words. And the way it is written, it's great because it's not complex. Since it's for children, it's from children's literature, it's easy to read. So it's a good choice if you are
Yeah.
willing to read something in English, but you don't know what. But it's, I would say, something that you should bear in mind when choosing something to read. Yeah.
Yeah. That's good advice, a good
Mm-hmm.
piece of advice. And I think Harry Potter's books, correct me if I'm wrong, because you are the fan here, but I think they get darker and more challenging,
Yeah.
but
Mm-hmm.
progressively.
Exactly. Like many children from age 9 or onwards, but also older ones or teenagers and young adults, they feel identified with the main characters because they grow older. So this allows you to grow up, to be able to grow up with the books when they were going out. So it's nice. Like I think it's from a generation that
Yeah.
our generation actually, um, that it allows us to do that and to connect really with the story and the characters. So that's good, even though it's a fantasy thing and it's in another world. Well, not really. It's our world with some magical
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I see. And speaking about children, I was thinking about my own reading journey, and I think as a child, I wasn't really an avid reader, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I preferred other activities like playing outdoors with my friends or indulging in crafts. I don't know why I was
Yeah.
really obsessed with them. And I think it wasn't until later in life that I really discovered the joy and richness that books can
Mm-hmm.
offer.
Yeah.
But I think it's okay. Like it's never too late to start.
Exactly. And again, it's trying to find something that really catches your attention. Um, and it's also habits. So even though if maybe you don't have much time to actually read a whole novel in 1 week, because it's not like that, at least reading, taking 5 minutes of your day to sit and read some pages is enough to create this habit of disconnecting a bit and immersing in these new
Yeah.
worlds. Um, Sometimes we're such in a rush all the time
Yeah.
that we want to have everything completed by just 1 hour, and it's not like that. You should take your time and enjoy
Mm.
that. So
That's
that's a
such a
good
good
thing.
point because apart
Yeah.
from being in a rush, we are also quite demanding, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we want to be really good at everything. And if we are
Yeah.
reading, we want to finish the book quickly and
Yeah.
be smarter. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it's hard because we have other things to do.
Yeah.
But reading at least 1, 2 pages per day is
Mm-hmm.
really good for our brains, for our heart, I would say. And if you are learning English, it can really help you a
Of
lot. Reading
course.
is such a good resource. You can read, you can learn plenty of vocabulary,
Mm-hmm.
practice pronunciation if you feel like reading
Yeah.
aloud.
I think that helps a lot. I used to do it when I was about to take the international exams, and I wanted to practice my speaking, besides
Yeah.
actually talking to the mirror for different purposes. I used to grab one book and read it aloud just to try to practice um, pronunciation, really, because it's not the same the way we speak in our minds and the way that we really speak.
No, we
So
wish.
that helps a lot. Yeah, of course. Yeah. And that I think that can bring us to another topic discussion, because we said how important it is to take some minutes of your day to read.
Mhm.
So are you the kind of person who reads on public places, maybe in the on the public transport, or do you prefer to read at home in a quiet place? What would you say?
Both, actually. I love them both. I mean, Of course, reading at home is best because it's really relaxing, but I also try to take advantage of the time that I have while I'm doing other things, like
Mm-hmm.
coming back home or waiting for the doctor. Somehow that's quite common,
Yes,
So I try
totally.
to carry a book with me every time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
Um, Connected to that, recently I bought an ebook,
I
a
see.
Kindle, and it allowed me a lot to do this when I was
Mm,
waiting for my doctor's appointment or on the public transport or anywhere really. I could have my favorite books there with me.
yeah.
Even though I do admit that I prefer paper books,
Yeah.
um, I have to admit that it's pretty useful, particularly when you travel,
Mm,
not to carry all the books which are
yeah.
heavy.
Yeah.
Um, so that's a good thing, a positive thing, but I prefer the paper ones, really.
Yeah, yeah, me too, but it has many benefits. Yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's practical, first of all, but it's also eco-friendly.
Yeah. But something that I miss when I read on my Kindle is that I do like making notes with pencil on my books. Um, so I know that with the Kindle you can do that because you
Right.
can highlight and underline and things like that, but it's not the same as, I don't know, I want to make a comment from a quote that I really liked or what it made me think about. Um, so I would miss that whenever I use my ebook.
Yeah.
Um, so that is a downside, I would say.
Yeah, that's true. It's funny because
Mm-hmm.
there are a couple of habits that I'm not particularly fond of, and that's one of them actually. Like
Yeah.
dog-eared pages or the scribbles in the margins. I don't really like doing that, but I understand how important it is to take down notes, and I do it too. But I use sticky notes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you there's something that is lost, I would say, from tradition. If we start not doing these tiny habits, because I bought in a second-hand
Yeah.
bookshop, I bought a book
Hmm.
and it had written different. It made like the previous owner of the book made
Yeah.
notes, and then I got it and I could read what this person believed. And maybe this
Mm,
was some years ago. And I think that is a good way of
yeah.
sharing thoughts. Uh, it's a special, I would say. I really like buying secondhand books. Um, and I don't know, it's something that adds another layer to the experience of reading. Maybe you're reading something and you come across with these comments and you say, "Oh, okay," and it's nice. I don't know
Absolutely.
if that
Yes.
happened to you with
Yeah,
other
you
books.
see, I'm with you on that one actually, because I also have a soft spot for secondhand bookstores.
Mm-hmm.
I love them. I feel, first of all, they have other collections sometimes.
Yeah.
And there's a unique charm in buying something that someone else used and
Mm-hmm.
having access to, yeah, their own reflections. I think that's absolutely special and I really appreciate it. So I don't really know why I don't do it, but every time I try to write something, I'm like, no, 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 I can't do that. But I feel like I should start doing it for the
Mm,
sake of then sharing that with someone else and, you know,
yeah.
uh, continuing with this tradition you
Mm,
mentioned. Yeah.
definitely.
And
Yeah,
sorry,
you
I
go.
just wanted to say that sometimes also you can find, apart from the notes, you can find stamps or even postcards.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
It's having something from that previous owner, and
Exactly.
maybe in the future you give that book to someone else, and this is something that goes on, and everyone adds something else to the book,
Right.
and it's an endless an endless thing,
Mm,
an endless connection, I would say.
right. And is that something that you tend to do, sharing books with your friends, your family?
With my family, I do because we are all avid readers. But with friends, the thing is that maybe they do not like the same books as I do. And I
Mm,
tend to buy books in English also because I prefer to have, if the writer is from an English speaking country, I'd rather have the original version than a translation. So they are like, okay, no, I don't want to read that or something like that. But I would say that having this opportunity of sharing books with someone else, it's really nice because you can say, okay, I read this book, you should definitely read it. And then you borrow that book to that
yeah,
person, and then they give you back that book. And maybe we exchange. The
yeah.
other person gives me one, and I give that person another one. And it's a good thing. What about you?
True. I mean, I think art in general is meant to be
Mm-hmm.
shared. And I really like the
Yes.
idea, what you are describing of books being like a cycle, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So they go and they come back. I really like that.
Yeah, totally. And has it ever happened to you that a book didn't really captivate you and you had to decide whether to continue reading it till the end or deciding to just um, stop reading it after 50 pages because you didn't like
Yes, I feel quite identified.
it?
That happened to me last year, actually. I bought in one of the secondhand bookstores I mentioned, I bought a classic. It's called The Catcher in the Rye. So maybe it rings a
Mm-hmm.
bell because
Yeah.
it's a big classic. And to be honest, I didn't quite enjoy it. And it's hard to say that when you're talking about a classic because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people love it and you feel the pressure in a way, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but the thing
As
is,
if no, you got no, I would say that as if you couldn't actually say that you didn't like it, that you had to
exactly.
say, okay, I read it, I read it. That's it. I'm
Yeah,
not going to make any
yeah,
comments on it.
done.
Yeah, exactly.
True,
I'm
but the
sorry
thing
for
is that,
interruption.
no, that's okay, please. The thing with that book is that, I mean, after I finished it, I
Mm-hmm.
analyzed it and I really appreciate what the author was trying to communicate. That
Yes.
said, I didn't really enjoy reading it, like the act of reading per se, because it's about a teenager that is quite, how can I put it? He's not very cheerful, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And he tends to criticize everything that is around him. So it was quite hard to read it, you know, because
Mm.
maybe I was in a good mood. I was really enjoying my day. And when I grabbed that book, I had to read about someone complaining like for pages
Yes.
and pages. And that part was quite challenging,
Mm-hmm.
the story.
Yeah, I would say the same. That happened to me with a classic last year as well. With one that I don't know if you really liked it. I have no idea, but I do know that you've read it before. But that book, that classic, is Little Women. Um,
Yeah.
I tried my best, and it was so hard to read. Maybe because it's the type of it's a novel which is very descriptive, and I
Mm,
know that it was the idea of the author as well, and from the period that she was writing in. But still, for me, it was so hard. I wanted
yeah.
action. I wanted things to happen. I needed that. So for me, reading a book that is purely descriptive makes it hard to follow and to
Mm,
really get that. I don't know, to that really to allow me to feel grasped by it. So hard, that one. And
Yeah.
it's also hard to say that you didn't like it, as I was saying, because it's a must read. I mean, everyone says that that book is a classic and incredible and all that. And you say, yeah, but I don't quite see it the same way.
Yeah.
Unpopular opinion, I would say.
Yes, see. Yeah, totally. Well, I read that one as a child, actually, even if I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't an avid reader. That was a gift. I think it's quite common to receive that
Yeah.
at some point. And I don't really remember what I thought while reading it, but I'm definitely sure I didn't really see what was going on. Like, probably I didn't really understand what was
Yeah.
happening because I was too young for that,
Yeah.
But I think
Um,
it was a version for children, though, if I'm not
okay.
mistaken. And that's another tip for language learners because
Mm-hmm.
um, maybe if you're a beginner, something you can do is to find readers, which are versions that are particularly prepared for students of the language. So the vocabulary and the grammar used is more basic and it tends to be
Yeah,
shorter also.
totally. And have you ever read a book that you couldn't really put it down?
Let's see.
And why was it so captivating?
Good point. Mm, I mean, apart from the ones we mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Let me think. Mm, maybe. Oh, I'm stuck. Can you help me? I think you know me quite
um,
well, so maybe you can give me
yeah,
some ideas.
you read one that I couldn't really got my hands on because I couldn't find it here
Yeah.
in any bookstore. But you bought it in a secondhand shop as well. And that's an interesting thing about that is that it's not available everywhere.
No.
So one of a kind books,
Yeah.
but the one of the five people you I met
The
in heaven
five
or something
people.
like that,
Yes, the five
was
people
it?
you met in heaven. That's true.
Yeah.
By Nietzsche. That one I loved it. Yes, because it's a strange book. When you
Uh-huh.
start reading, oh, thank you for that. Why, when you start reading it on the first page, one of the first
Yeah.
lines is you're reading the end of the story, you know?
Yeah.
So you find out that the main character actually died and you don't really understand how that happened and
Hmm.
what the book is going to be about because the main character is
Exactly.
dead. So, yes, it's a very interesting book. And then I read another one that is really mysterious. The thing is that I don't really remember the title. Maybe you can also help me, but it's another book
Mm.
by Maki One that starts with an accident with an air balloon. Do you know
I
which
don't
one I'm
quite
talking
remember.
about? Well, I'll try
No.
to find the title for it. Maybe we can add it to the description of the video.
Yeah.
But that one is
Yeah. Yeah.
amazing because again, it starts with an accident and another person dies. I'm sorry, and the book gets really creepy actually because the main
Okay.
character he feels really guilty for that accident, even though it wasn't
Hmm.
entirely his fault, and he starts to interact with another person that was involved in that accident and he becomes like that other person becomes
Yeah.
obsessed with the main character
Oh my God.
and follows
Yeah.
him everywhere. It's really
That's
good.
creepy.
Yeah, and it's based
Okay,
on a real
that's a good.
story, believe it or
Really?
not. Yes,
I
yes it
see.
is.
It's great how some authors can take these stories and turn them into arts
Yeah,
in a way. Um,
amazing.
that's great. Yeah. The one I was thinking about that really um, kept me hooked from beginning to end and
Yeah.
had many plot twists,
Mhm.
was a classic. And I would say that it was one of my favorite books as well. And it still is, really. Jane Eyre
Oh,
by
yes,
one of
I
the
love
Bronte
that one.
families. Um, I thought that it was going to be like Pride and Prejudice in that sense, as a romantic novel, two people who meet and they fall in love, and despite different difficulties. But even though it is like that, it has many comes and goes, and unexpected things happen that do not allow you to put the book down. I have this reading experience because I was reading it
Yeah.
and I took it to my hairdresser's appointment.
Hmm.
I was getting highlights and I had to be at the hairdresser for a long time. And literally, believe me, it was like watching a TV drama because I was reading it and I was like, no, what? This really
Yeah.
happens? I think that is amazing when you can find a book that really, really, really gets your attention. And it's so gripping that you don't want to finish reading it because you know that at some point it's going to be over. And you say, no,
Yeah.
please, I need it to be longer. So there are plenty of good stories that we can try um, to find in different ways. And the unexpected ones sometimes are the best. When you do not have much expectations, but then you end up being so surprised.
Yeah.
Um, that's
Or when
great.
you just stumbled upon them, when you
Yeah.
weren't really looking for them. Like this one I mentioned,
Mhm.
sorry, I Googled the title of it because I had to know
What
it.
was it?
It's called
Yeah.
it's called Enduring Love. And
Uh-huh.
actually the reason why I couldn't really recall the title of it is because it isn't that romantic, the story.
No.
I thought it was going to be a really romantic work, and actually
Yeah.
it's not. I mean, in a way, it explores different
Hmm.
aspects of relationships, but I would say it's more mysterious and creepy. So if you like those kind of books, I recommend it.
That's a good
Um,
thing.
yeah, yeah. So I agree with you. I think finding a book that really matches your style is really
Hmm.
important. I mean, of course, we all have different hobbies, but if you are into reading and you are finding it hard to really connect with this activity, I
Hmm.
think that's the best feeling when you can't put it down, because now we live in a time where we have so many distractions
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard to get into the habit of reading.
Hmm. And it's been left aside somehow, um, and change into other things that you could do, as we said, more in a rush, and it doesn't require a lot of time to finish them. Um, Thinking about that, um, I've had, as you know, my eye surgery. I got laser surgery, so for a week I couldn't do anything. I couldn't read. I couldn't watch TV series. I couldn't do anything. But I found myself listening to, besides podcasts, I listen to audiobooks. And I've listened to Pride and Prejudice from Jane Austen. And that lasts, if you listen to the audiobook, it lasts 19 hours. So if you compare that to the movie that lasts 1 hour and 50 minutes, of course you
Right.
go for the movie, but then you miss so much. And imagine the audiobook, it was read, it was the book
Yeah.
read. So it's not that much. Um, and you can, if you are not really a person who can sit down and concentrate, having the audiobook and following um, the reading while the other person is reading helps you a lot. And also, if you're learning English, it's a good tip as well to know how to pronounce different words.
Yeah.
Right?
And apart from the pronunciation, something you can pay attention at is the way in which all of those words are put together in a sentence. Because something
Definitely.
good about audiobooks is that the reader tries to put a lot of emphasis on the feelings and the emotions of the characters. So if the character is angry, he would pronounce those words in a certain way, you know?
Yeah.
If
It's
the
not
character is
robotic and stiff.
happy, no, exactly. If the
Exactly.
character is happy, cheerful, then the intonation is different, completely different. And that's really useful. You're right.
Exactly. We always think about ways in which learners can make the most of each experience, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say, so many books, so little time,
Mhm.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I
And we
guess
would
this
be
is a
able,
topic that we can continue exploring.
exactly, a lot. There are so many books, as you say, that we can always discuss new ones that are come out or old ones that we came across
Yeah.
now.
So I
So,
already have new ideas for my next reading. So thank you a lot.
right. And thank you because I've got some that I haven't read. So that's a good
Even a
sign.
mysterious one.
Exactly.
That's perfect for you.
Yeah, of course. Okay, Marty. So I've got a dash now, but I'll see you next time.
See you next time. Bye bye.
Bye bye.